Hello, thank you for coming today to another Climate Matters show. We're starting a little bit early. Last time I did this, the room started empty and ended full, but, well, a bit full. I'm your host, Stuart Scott, and we're coming to you live from Paris, France, from the 21st Conference of Parties to the Kyoto Protocols. Here's my email address if anyone would like to get in touch after the show. And this is being simulcast over the UN's website and will be available on demand, both on the UN website and on our website. In particular, our website is climatematters.tv, where you'll find past shows as well, and the remaining shows that we have this week at the COP. Here are some hashtags if you are tweeting, and we encourage you to use them. Today's guests with me in our studio, compliments of the United Nations FCCC. We have with us Maria Simone Sifang from the Pacific Calling Partnership, Sinai Teaua, okay. Kiribati Climate Action Network, Maina Talia from the Tuvalu Climate Action Network, and Dr. Robert Kay from ICF International. A disclaimer to start with, that the opinions expressed by the people on this panel are not necessarily those of their organizations. And today's topic Kiribati, Tuvalu, and Miami Beach. What do they have in common? Let me go back. I just advanced over one of Dr. Kay's publications. I wanted to establish for you that may I call you Robert? Sure. Robert's expertise is in coastal management and adaptation to climate change in coastal regions. Here are two of his publications. The second one he co-authored. So he has some expertise. He also has personal knowledge and familiarity with the people and the conditions in the South Pacific Islands. These are his friends. He actually brought them to my attention, which is why we're all here together on the stage. So first, I'd like to start with a few images from this past year in Kiribati. This is during a king tide, it's called, and this is after the tide. This is before the tide and during the tide. Here's a shot of someone off to get their groceries, perhaps before the tide and during the tide. This is another shot just taken of the effects in some part of the island. These are all of Kiribati. Here's the seawall that's constructed in one particular area to try to keep the ocean out during these king tides and storms. And here's really nice shots taken of a wave breaching a similar seawall. And the question, of course, is how long can this island and its population withstand the forces of nature that are being thrown at them by climate change? No mistaking that. We'll move to Tuvalu, where I only have 2 slides, but they say quite enough. These children don't look quite disturbed. This is a usual event for them, perhaps by now. And this flood in an area that has coconut palms actually ruins a long-term food crop. The coconuts won't bear once their land has been salted like this. So their food supply is being ravaged by the oncoming climate change. And last but not least, let's go to Miami Beach. During one of their periodic flooding episodes, increasingly frequent, this is during a hurricane. I think this was Rita. This is after. The same human tragedy, the difference being that in Miami there is the financial capacity to recover. There's a tourist industry. You have to keep Miami solid for the tourists to come. Now, I'd like some of our friends with us today to present their story. So if I may pass the baton, please tell us your experience.
Hi everyone, my name is Naijawa. I am from the Republic of Kiribati. Let me tell you everything, some facts about Kiribati. Kiribati Island is located in the central tropic of the Pacific Oceans. It consists of only 105,000 people living in the island, and the size of the island is only 85 square kilometers. And Kiribati Atoll Island is blessed with very big oceans and a very unique land and culture. Not only that, but Kiribati Island is very, very, very vulnerable right on the front line of climate change. Earlier this year, in February, there was a king tide, came in and hit every home in Kiribati.
Every home?
Some of the homes, and especially on the coastal area. And unfortunately, some of our people, they were living right on the coastal area. They're the people of the ocean. They really love staying at this coastal area. Not only that, but it's also during the king tide that was in February. A few weeks later, we have this cyclone Pam. This came from Vanuatu, and it also reached my home, Kiribati. And if you can imagine, if they both come at the same time, what will happen? And
we call that the perfect storm.
It's a perfect storm. And not only that, but more flooding, storm surges that we are having and experience nowadays in Kiribati. Earlier this year, and it's so sad that I've seen and experienced such impacts and changes due to climate change in Kiribati or impact home, where people they're rebuilding their sea walls over and over again, trying to hold on to their lands because their lands, they are very important to them. Not only that, but coastal erosion due to sea level rising. We have so many problems back home where our food crops have been destroyed, food security, mainly our breadfruit trees, coconut trees that we depend on, they are all totally destroyed at that time. And unfortunately, it's also affected our water security. And unfortunately, it is very limited and it's very lack at this moment, that lack of safe water for all of us back home. Climate change is not only affecting our people physically, but also emotionally, that we are living in very fear and thinking that it will continue to come back later or in the future continuously happen. But what happened here, or what most importantly, personally, I don't want to move, and I don't want to leave my Kiribati home, because that's where my ancestors have been fighting over and over again to fight for our lands. Our lands is our identity, and without land, we are nothing. So I am here urging and calling the world leaders to think of my future. And most importantly, I want to have many things to do in my future. I want to have a kid. I want to have children, raised them up with this unique culture. But what could I do with having this ongoing effects of climate change? There's nothing I could do about it. And I'm here calling them, urging them that below 1.5 degrees, it will help me and remain to be Kiribati, and practicing more and more of this unique culture for the rest of my life. Thank you very much.
Have you had a chance to meet with any of the negotiators or heads of state? Have you been able to make this case to the people who are negotiating all of our future?
Yes. At this point in time, I've been challenging all these negotiators that they should think of those people that lived in low-lying highlands, especially myself. They should think about the future. And I'm not only saying that, but I told them, if you not save Kiribati, if you not save my future, it is coming to you. Right at you, right? So if you think about it now, so you save me, you save my future, you save the whole world.
We talked earlier today, and thank you for saying that. That is the point. This is coming soon to a neighborhood near you. Mm-hmm. No matter what country you live in, unless you're completely landlocked, if you have a coast, this kind of problem is coming at us from all directions, literally. I know Thailand experienced incredible flooding periodically and more frequently. But everywhere, Miami Beach, more and more frequently. So what you're experiencing is, unfortunately, it has to go somewhere first, and it's going at your small nation first, but we are all subject to the same situation. Now, if we can move across a large stretch of ocean, but only a short distance of table, Maina, would you tell us some of your experience in Tuvalu?
Well, thank you very much, Scott. And the case in Tuvalu in relation to climate change is
bring your microphone
very
closer.
Similar to what Sinai have told you about, in terms of the context and the issues that we continue to face in our daily survival. Climate change does not only confine to the people of Tuvalu or in the Pacific nations. It transcends context, and it gains wide currency everywhere. Tuvalu is just a very small nation, and it's located to the north of Fiji, very close to Fiji, and it's a Polynesian island. It consists of 8 islands, and the population is around approximately 10,000 residing in Tuvalu. The highest point is less than 2 meters. We don't have any mountains, no rivers to rely on. So our survival totally depends on rainwater harvesting. If there is no rain, therefore we struggle. So every 3 weeks, if we don't have any rains for the period of 3 weeks, it simply means we are entering into a drought. So it's a matter of frequency and the intensity of issues that arise out of climate change. And as Sinai was telling about Cyclone Pam, we were actually also badly struck by Cyclone Pam at the very beginning of this year, and it is one of the worst experiences that our elders and our people face, especially women and children and those with disabilities. So it is a cross-cutting issue, and it is difficult to comprehend But my speak or my talk will shape around the issue of faith and climate change. I want to say something unique about climate change in relation to our faith. Since Tuvalu and other Pacific nations are all Christian nations, I may say that the issue of climate change totally shook the very foundation of our faith in terms of all Christian people understand the story of Noah and the narrative of how Noah became the hero in the story. So our elders and our conservatives totally rely on that text as something that, no, there is no climate change. The Bible says that God will intervene. God will not send any more flood to destroy humanity, which is something that our church back home and our NGOs been talking about. We need to convince these people, we need to convince the community of faith that we don't need that story of Noah, which was happened on the other side of the world, to be interpreted in our context. So we need to interpret the story of Noah in the Tuvaluan context, look at it from a Tuvaluan perspective, and how we can address the issue of climate change from the story of Noah. Because we cannot continue to say to the international community that we ignore that we don't have a problem. But we do have a problem. We are facing climate change. It's just a matter of people who still remain to their traditional faith. So when I encountered by Christian communities and Christian brothers and sisters who continue to say that they are remembering Tuvalu in their prayers, and I kept on telling them, praying without actions, it's not true. We need to pray and we need to do something. If we are world leaders who are here, if our leaders are here and they are all Christian, or they're not specifically Christians, but they are from faith-based organization, faith-based community, and they kept on praying without negotiating for 1.5 degrees below, that defines our survival. And that means that they're playing games with God. They need to be serious with their prayers. We need to be serious with climate change. And the way how we address it, it's all about human beings, the survival of us. So from a theological, biblical point of view, in terms of looking at the issue from a biblical point of view, we need to do something as a community. A collective decision, a collective effort will keep Tuvalu and other nations afloat. And the gradually loss of land, culture, identity, as Sinai mentioned earlier, it's also something that we are going through. About 4,000, 5,000 people of Tuvalu are residing in New Zealand. And we cannot afford to continue that, because we want our people to remain on our island. That's why relocation for us is not an option. And we kept on fighting that relocation should not be an option for the Tuvaluan people. You know, we have strong connection with our land. Our land defines who we are. And losing someone's land is simply or literally means we are losing life. So that's why in the last side events, I talked about the placenta of a mother. We call that whanua, and we call the land whanua or whenua as well. It's the same word we give to the placenta and the land. So when the baby is out of the placenta, the role of the placenta will take over by the land. The land will continue to look after that baby. That's why we have that strong linkage with the land. And I normally say this sequence. There is a sequence in the Pacific, and I would love to reiterate it here. People Please. Plus land plus ocean plus God equals to life. If the nexus is broken, it's equal to death. Thank you. I can add more.
No, thank you. I'd like to thank you especially for bringing in the element of faith. I neglected to announce the name, to read the name of the NGO that sponsors this program here, which is the United Planet. Think United Nations without lines being drawn. United Planet, all peoples. Faith and Science Initiative. And it was very, very intentionally named that way, because rarely do you get all faiths agreeing on something. You know, there's bickering and sometimes battling. But we have a huge consensus among all the faiths of Earth that climate change is human-caused, is serious, and action is urgently needed. Pope Francis, who leads one of the largest faiths on Earth, is very, very, very vocal, and God bless him for that. And science, there are many people who are not of a religious or faith orientation, but they say, yeah, science, okay, and they follow what the scientists say, and science is in agreement. We have a problem. Or in the famous words in my country, Houston, I think we have a problem. So when you put faith and science together, and they together agree on this urgent problem, it's like, what on earth could be stopping our leaders from acting on behalf of the best interests, the welfare of current and future humanity? It's mind-boggling. Now, it's a thread that I bring up often. It's the elephant in the room, which is that it's contradictory to our economic interests. Growth, building more, harvesting more, to slow society down. But I believe that's what's required. So in my prayers, I pray that the bankers of the world realize that we can't keep building at the rate we have. But thank you very much for reminding me of that. And actually, on that note, I think what I would like to do now, we usually have a non-commercial break in the middle of our show, but I'd like to invite some of the members of the audience to come up with us for singing of a song that's a song of the joint peoples of Kiribati and Tuvalu. Now, do we have a microphone for Q&A? Can we get that? Okay, so if you can cluster around these microphones, you can hold them, and in the back. We have 3 microphones, so if you can share them and cluster in groups.
Tuvalu ko tua te whenua, ko tarawa toku no manaia. Fia oko atua uki e ia sa whakamuli. Toe wheilo ai tātou, mo matua pele I te loto. Mana tu mauloa te ola mo te malosi. He rapa te asu anana tangira. Whakamoe moe tātou ke toi wheilo ai. Whakatasi mo te manuia. Tēnā mongari o toku whenua, te wafu sa meni e takato. Te lea I ko te mātai ala tau ki tā karonga. Vai ko te asanga lasi, tau atu ki te motu bairiki. Ko te kongane maua mai e te waimani e te whenua. E rapa te asu anana tangira. Whakamoe moe tātou ke toi wheilo ai. Whakatasi mo te manuia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's the first time we've had entertainment, singing entertainment in the middle of one of our shows, and it was quite successful. We got to do that again. So let's move on. We're not quite short on time, but I want to get to Robert, our scientist, at the end also. So would you share with us your experience in Kiribati first? Yes.
Pulavinaka, Talo Falawa, Kamnapenini Maori, and welcome to one and all. I work with the Pacific Calling Partnership, which is based in Sydney, and part of my role is to raise the awareness of how low-lying islands in the Pacific have been and will continue to be affected by climate change. Our leaders from the Pacific Islands have been very proactive and vocal on this issue, climate change. I just want to share with you a very short story. I was in Kiribati this year in July and running a workshop with the youth. Those youth are the leaders, the future leaders for Kiribati. And migration came up in the conversation. And the youth looked into my eyes, straight into my eyes. They said, Maria, why should we move? This is where we were born. Our ancestors were buried here. As Maina and Sinai have mentioned, that climate change is not just about moving people to a safer place. It's about the human rights of people who want to stay in their home islands. And those youth, as I said, they look into my eyes and they said, why should we move? This is where we're born. We'd rather die here. We want to grow up and enjoy the life, that and everything in Kiribati. And for us, climate change is about our very survival. Climate change is not just the issue for Kiribati and Tuvalu. As Dewa said, if you can save my future, then you save the world. And the Prime Minister from Tuvalu mentioned it the other day. He said, if the world can save Tuvalu, the world can save as well. Our president at the side event last night, he said, President Mr. Arnold Tong, he said, it is very unjust for developed countries to keep doing what is so wrong and jeopardize the life of our people. Our life is in the hands of those developed countries, and I also strongly feel that it's not right. I have a son 3 years old who is in Kiribati, and I'm trying to get him to Australia. But at the same time, I want him to grow up in Kiribati and learn all the cultures, just like what I did. But I'm also concerned, and I'm scared for his future. And it's very clear, as nice, the youth for not just that representing Kiribati, but representing all the Pacific and those islands that